start first. Yeah, for our group, we will be talking about the Singapore standard of living has dropped for the past 10 years, and the whole group of us disagree. I'm Yuan Chang, this I'm Sheng, this Kyrie, and this Jeremy. We disagree with the topic because we think that the standard has increased. This is because, for example, I'll be talking about the COE portion. The COE is the certificate of entitlement, which you have to pay for, and you have to bid and pay for if you want to purchase a car. And according to the statistics, the price of the COE that you have to pay is currently is now for those 1,006 cc and above. The price is now 73K. Compared to the previous years, like during 2008, 2009, the COE is only costing about maximum around 10K or slightly past 10K. So despite the high cost of the COE that you have to pay for, there's still a lot of people bidding for the COE. For example, there's a statistics. It's okay. For 2009, all the years, the number of people bidding for the COE is like it's like 1.5 times of the COE that's being given out. Yeah. So we think that despite with the high cost, people are still able to afford what they want and their necessity.
Okay, good point.
Then I'll be touching on the crime rate in Singapore. As you know, Singapore is one of the lowest crime rate in Singapore, in the country. And if there's a statistic, on the news, they also stated that Singapore crime rate dropped 7% to lowest in 20 years. This also brings up the standard of living, which means in spite of the large and dense population in Singapore.
Okay, good. So
talking about transportation, I believe that transportation in Singapore has improved over the last few years because for the MRT, the stations have been increased over the last 10 years. And there is also an increase in buses. With the people in Singapore gaining a salary much more over the last 10 years, I think they can afford the transportation in Singapore, although the cost of transportation is increasing.
okay.
I just want to add on some statistics about Singapore nowadays. Singapore is one of Asia's most advanced cities, with a standard of living comparable to North America and Western Europe. So in terms of quality of life, it is tops in Asia and number 32nd in the world, according to the annual Mercer Human Resource Consulting Survey in 2008. Singapore's gross domestic product per capita in 2009 was among the highest in the world. The poverty rates are low and most Singaporeans are blessed with a roof over their heads.
Okay.
So despite the fact that they are always complaining that they can't afford this, can't afford that, they still have a house to live in, and 90% of the households are equipped with modern amenities such as computers and televisions.
Good.
So yeah, healthcare standards are high with about one doctor to every 625 persons. Yeah, that was in 2008.
Okay. Do you have any numbers to show comparative to other countries? It's a great statistic, 1 to 600, but if other countries is 1 to 60, then we may have not enough doctors. So it's good to always give a comparison. Good. Any other comments?
Like what Roy said last week, because the SRTs hiring cheap labours, right? I think it's good that because they can actually save up for bigger projects in the future, like expanding the SMRT services.
Okay, so Singapore is a good place because it has potential to expand further because it's using cheaper labor right now. Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to open to the floor.
You can open to the floor.
So the transport, right?
Right, go ahead.
Thing is, they're not saving up for good things. SMRT's dinner and dance, for example, that costed at least $500,000 because Solving One, the CEO, hired 6 naked men to carry her on the chair. So, of course, that's not spending on good things. And furthermore, the amount of this made, like I said, you check the rails once in every 10 years. So, they should only increase the CEO's salary once in every 10 years.
Okay. Okay, the issue here is the standard of living in Singapore is good. This is what the guys are saying. So for all those reasons,
It's all.
well, you're saying also well, SMRT recently had some problems. So how would you all rebut to that? That maybe it's not because Singapore is not good, it's just that we have too many people and therefore the standard of living is going down because of breakdowns and so on. Right? Comments?
What my opinion about the breakdown of the transportation is not a very good, very big deal because it's just that it only breaks down for after so many years because not all systems will be run perfectly throughout the whole entire years that the company is running.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's not a very big problem that's being caused. It's because it's just one or two times.
Min Cheng, your original point is that transport is better because COEs have gone up. So in other words, people can afford and they want to get more cars. So in that sense, standard of living in Singapore is good. That's your
Yes.
point, right? So now the MRT issue, are you saying that on the MRT side, we're still better than say 10 years ago?
Yeah, we are still better compared to the past 10 years because there's a significantly increase in the number of stations being built and they also replace a lot of those buses that's being used.
Okay, so that's just a counter argument. Now, he's contending even with these breakdowns, we are better off because we now have double the number of stations from before. More places are being reached and we're replacing our buses.
Yes.
Okay, comments?
But I think that's a big deal because when they happen once, it happens again and again and again. Like floods, for example, happens one in 50 years. But if we go by that, then about 450 years have passed since the first flood. Still flooding. Then talk about buses. Buses in Singapore lifespan 20 years. Buses in Denmark 5 years. So before the standard of living increase, none of this crap happened. But after it increased, everything starts to happen. Floods, MRT breakdowns, buses jumping over the rail station.
Okay. So there's a higher level of this instances. Chum?
Well, as much as Singapore's standard of living in terms of cars, train, but what about the individual Singaporeans' standard of living? For example, their salary. Their salary has not really increased for quite some time. Although we have always seen the government's salary rate increase from time to time, recently probably. So in around a few years back, when Goh Chok Tong said that Singapore can really achieve the Swiss standard of living. But however, do we really see the Swiss standard of living now? Because in Switzerland, for example, they have a minimum wages whereby even a cleaner themselves they earn about 1,000.
Okay. Which is why the cost of living the highest in the world is Switzerland.
So but because of that, they managed to get the salary to match their standard of living. However, in Singapore, it doesn't seem the case.
Okay. Good point. I'll just talk a little bit about that. Minimum wages in the US is now $6 an hour. You hire any person, you want to hire anyone formally, you have to give $6. But there's a flip side to that. If you're a poor company, you may say, I'm not going to hire Winnie here because I don't even want to pay $6 an hour. So some poor girl here, I'm happy to work $3 an hour, won't get a job because I'm not going to give it to her. I just can't afford $6 an hour for one more person. So there is a place that while it creates a lowering, doesn't mean it allows everyone to get that minimum wage. All right? So what other arguments do you all have that Singapore is, the standard of living has gone down? I think it's a very good one to talk about. Yes, things are better, but overall, are our wages keeping up?
No, I agree with you, because if you take GDP to measure the standard of living like the government has always been doing, then that's not reflective. Because the GDP goes up thanks to the insider trading, I mean GIC and all that. GDP goes up, but the standard of living doesn't go up. The people are not happy. The pay is not going up. So the pay does not match the GDP, And they say for a country to be, let's say we're talking about finances now, for a country to be financially balanced, the pay of the leader of the country, or rather the top tier, should be around 22 times at the most of the lowest paid person. But in Singapore, it's 40 times. And in contrast, in Africa, which is well known for corruption, that's 41. So that shows that we almost have sort of tyranny for government here.
The reason why it's 41 in Africa is because on paper it's 41. In reality, it's 41 million times because they put a lot of money tucked inside some foreign bank. But that's a separate case. Roy, good arguments, but I think you're pulling in the issue of the ruling party, I think, which is a separate topic, well worth talking about. But in this case, it's purely about the standard of living. So the issue that you guys have to put forward still is, are Singaporeans better now than 10 years ago? These guys are saying that sloppiness in the MRT, you're saying that there's more MRT. You're saying salary doesn't keep up. Can you guys rebut that? About pure salaries. Here is where you might want to give evidence to say that Singaporeans on the whole have more money. What would you say?
About the salary, as what Jared mentioned, most of the people now have at least a house to stay in, and it is doing updated. As in, there is computers, there's TVs, all these things.
Okay. Yes.
The fact that nowadays the people have computers, have TV, have jewelries, have all these, but they're all using credit cards, all their future money.
Okay.
Therefore, there are more and more people paying bankrupt.
All right. Good point. So at this point in case, if anyone here has the notes to say, let me just tell you a statistic on the level of debt in Singapore. It's actually gone down overall. Then you would have perfectly rebutted that point. Okay, but obviously no one has any statistics on debt in Singapore. But yes, it has been going up a little bit. But that's more of a social crisis rather than an economic crisis.
Like everybody in Singapore has a house to live in.
Good.
But most of them using paying by installment, using their money salary to pay. So if the standard of living, their salary doesn't increase, they'll find it more difficult to pay for their house.
Okay.
And they still got to study, their children study.
Okay, good.
Can I ask
Sure.
So compared to my country, right? Actually, we don't really have an installment in insurance and CPF. So, okay, for my father's, he really worked hard, like over 12 years to get a car. So, but the car is our own, so that we don't have insurance and so on. So we have to buy the car. We have to give a large amount of money at the first place to buy a car. But in Singapore, right, after I graduate, maybe after work for 1 year, then they can have a car, buy insurance and CPF. So their standard of living is higher.
So hers is a personal anecdote that it's better than Burma. Alright. Alright, but that's a good point. Okay. Any other arguments that you might want to cite that means Singapore is high? Now you've got some corroboration from a fellow ASEAN country, which is true. But it'd be interesting to see we just have this argument about Burma 10 years from now, because Burma seems to be taking off now. So really interesting.
It hasn't gone up. Let me quote a personal anecdote as well. My friend's grandmother lives in a flat in Ang Mo Kio. Flat is about, thousands of years old. The cooking stove is based off a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So that's about 35 years old for a stove, 15 for a fridge, and 25 for a TV. So although it's a TV that's 25 years old, doesn't have the money to buy a new TV.
Okay.
Unless the government is going to give us flat screen TVs, and no, the standard of living hasn't gone up.
Okay. All
They're
right.
putting flat screen TVs everywhere except in our homes.
Okay. So now the argument, guys, is being brought by Roy. Is very interesting that maybe you start to see a lot more flat screen TVs in some apartments, but there might be a segment of population, like that friend's house in Ang Mo Kio, that is falling through the net, and the standard of living is no money to take MRT. You can't even see how clean it is. So, what can you say, or do you have any evidence that?
The worst thing is that they're in this predicament because the government isn't offering support to them.
Okay.
Their income is not low enough to qualify for support, but then again, it's just right above that barrier. So it's barely making ends meet, but yet they cannot qualify for support.
Okay.
And in terms of support, the government doesn't provide much. But let's say, link back to the foreign talent article just now.
Okay.
Ensuring the kids have education, yeah, fine, that is fair. But talking about the quality of life here doesn't go up.
Okay.
It's very hard for people to enjoy life. A quality life is where you enjoy and not constantly worry about things. So imagine she's constantly worrying about the 25-year-old TV blowing up.
Okay. Nishan, you say something?
I want to say that's just a quality of living, but the topic we are in is standard of living. So no, it doesn't really affect the standard of living for the true quality of life. Yeah, because despite the lower salary, right? I mean the salary does not increase a lot, but there are still a lot of people able to afford what they want, other than their necessities. For example, I have friends that spend a lot, but their family is only one or two working, but their salary is not increasing at any rate. But they are able to travel around and afford whatever they want.
Okay. So that's also another interesting point. If you had the statistic to say that the travel goes up, I mean, I can certainly relate to that. I mean, when mine was your age, the first time I took a trip was when I was 17. But now, you guys will be traveling definitely as part of your school even. So that's the overall sense of travel as an argument. It's a means that was never there before. Okay. Any other?
The amount of overseas travel has gone up, but travel aside, when you talk about things you would normally do in Singapore, standard of living, how much time can you actually afford to do things that you like to do? If you work our ass off, you don't have time for your own, you work your ass off to just pay the installments for a flat. The cost of a flat is absurd here. Mine, for example, 5 rooms, it costs nearly $500,000. 5 rooms. This is 5 really small rooms. $500,000. In other countries, it doesn't cost that much. Other developed countries, and things are costly because we always want to limit the number of things here. Let's say cars, for example, costly because they don't want the road to be full of cars. But yet, when they encourage us to take public transport, it breaks down. When we drive our cars, we get stuck in the ERP, and then when this ERP gets stuck, they put another one right there.
Okay.
So standard of living not up, the traffic doesn't flow smoothly, the trains don't run smoothly, the buses catch fire.
Right. So Roy, you're introducing a very interesting point that the people are getting squeezed. Therefore, the quality of life is not good. Sure, we have expensive cars, but they're expensive, and now the MRT is breaking down. Sure, you might make some money, but a lot of the money is meant to pay for very high-cost goods, and you don't have time to enjoy your so-called new life and so on.
No future.
Any other comments? Yes.
We need censorship because
Okay.
So, Singapore's standard of living has increased, that's what you say, over the past 10 years, right? So, my question is, has it increased enough compared to other countries?
Compared to other countries, well, against Burma, it's fine. So what about other countries? That's the whole point. Relative.
I would like to reinforce my answer. In the case of other countries, in terms of Dubai, for example, it was a lagging country in the decade back, but now it is slowly growing.
Sure.
It's also even catching up to Singapore right now. wavering rather than rising.
Okay, it's wavering. But the main issue here is it was better than 10 years ago. So it might be wavering. As long as it's wavering on a higher level, then the proposition here has to stand. Okay? So you're right, it may be wavering compared to China, compared to Dubai, but that's not the point. The point is we're still doing fine compared to 10 years ago. All right?
The level of increase is very little, I think.
Okay.
And okay, let's talk about the point back again. I mean, government talking about Swiss standard of living. If let's say they can afford to lose 60 billion in sovereign funds in a failed investment, 60 billion, why can't you put this 60 billion into giving everybody collectively a higher standard of living?
So 60,000 million divided by 6 million people, everyone gets $1,000. Not bad, huh?
It's not bad. The 1,000 can go.
For instance, they can use the 60 billion to subsidize concession for police.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sorry. 60 billion divided by 6 million Singaporeans is $10,000 each. That's what happened. But I'm not sure, but the 60 billion is
we don't exactly need to give it to every Singaporean. The rich don't need it, so why don't we just pull it, give it to the poor?
Poly students get 20,000.
Yeah, poly students.
20,000. Okay, good. Any other comments?
Yeah,
Oh, yes, last one then.
It's not fair. He keeps saying about the 60 billion thing. But
that's because it's a very good example.
he doesn't say how much the government has earned for the country.
Okay.
They may have failed.
In the relative scheme, if the percentage, it is going off topic a little bit. It is, but the thing is, on the point of argument that relative to other countries, so that brings us into a whole topic altogether. All right, so we're moving off a little bit. Anyone? Last comments? Healthcare.
Healthcare, the standard of living is also not, although it's increasing in terms of technology, but however, because as it increases, the people still can't really afford. Then most of them are having the need to keep their grandparents all the way to JB just to enjoy their.
Okay, so the anecdote here is that people are abandoning their parents, all right? But at the anecdotal level too, I would argue that sometimes the people that kick old parents out are also doing well. They just haven't been brought up properly.
But some might be really forced to.
Of course, that I would grant that. I would concede that argument too. All right. Any other comments? Yes, Wim.
Actually, you cannot blame the government for having this standard of living decreasing. It means everything is becoming more expensive. Because, like example, a guy from a university who just graduated, then after 1 year of working, then he will want to have own a sports car.
So the expectations have gone up.
That's what he's buying what he wants, not what he needs.
Yeah, his expectations, which is one of the big arguments in Singapore. You know, you guys, when you all graduate, I'm sure you're thinking, I want at least $3,000 a month. You know, but it's very different than your parents' generation 20 years ago. They'll be very happy for a very minimal pay, but you know, it's all part and parcel of expectations. Yeah. So there is an issue of expectations. Maybe the argument is that higher expectations suggest that overall things are getting better because we are becoming a bit more unrealistic. Might be an argument. Okay. Any other comments?
That's not true exactly.
Go for it.
Because if let's say the standard of living was okay, if everybody wanted a sports car after they graduated, everybody would have a sports car. No, they don't. Instead, everybody has a proton, which they crash in and they die. It's a biscuit tin on wheels.
But this is a car.
It's a biscuit tin of a car.
Okay.
But if you don't want to buy a good car, if you don't want to
That means the quality of life, the standard of living has gone up. See, you have to have a car, that's a bare minimum.
But the comparison, Roy, might be, I don't have these figures, what percentage of poly grads own a car 1 year after graduation now versus 10 years ago? And that would be the argument. And I don't have this thing right now.
You don't drive your own car, that's your mother's car.
Okay, so, I think on that we have enough. Okay, so any other